Alright, today we're platinuming Minecraft, one of the greatest games ever created.
Yeah.
And there's a total of 52 trophies, and they're gonna pop a lot, so be ready. I loaded into a regular survival world and started looking around when I found everyone's favorite thing, a village. And since I hadn't played the PS5 version of Minecraft, I actually was getting all the trophies, so I got this one for opening my inventory, and then a few seconds later I got this one for obtaining wood. After cutting down a tree or two, I got this trophy for making a crafting table, and then right after I ended up making a wooden pickaxe to get cobblestone, but also got this trophy for doing so. Right after I made the pickaxe, this zombie tried touching me, so I had to handle business real quick and get a trophy for doing that as well. I then ended up mining up a bunch of cobblestone because what kind of brokey uses wood tools longer than they have to? And with all my newfound stone, I decided to knock out a bunch of trophies really quickly. First I made a furnace to get this trophy. I made a stone hoe for this trophy, made a stone pickaxe for this trophy, and lastly I made a stone sword for this trophy. And I decided to put the stone sword to work right away by killing this cow to get this trophy. I then decided to fill out my stone tool Pokedex by crafting this shovel and an axe to get this trophy for making one of every tool. And then after all that hard work, I decided it was finally time to rob the village blind, where I found some obsidian for the nether portal in the future. I also found some iron for, literally everything in this game. And I also found some potatoes to start a farm later on. And all that stealing really made me work up an appetite, so I ate this pork chop to get this trophy for doing so. The next thing I wanted to do was make a sign. And after making the sign, I put it down to get this trophy. After almost immediately getting destroyed by a creeper, I went over to the sheep that escaped and sheared him for this trophy. The next thing I had to do was decide where I wanted home base to be, so I just ended up climbing the mountain right next to the village and decided it was good enough. So the first thing I decided to do was start evening the land out. And as I was evening the land out, I ended up getting really lucky and finding some iron, so I ended up cooking it to get this trophy. And after about an hour of flattening the land out, it was finally time to make a house. One thing you should know about me in playing Minecraft is I always go super over the top when it comes to bases. I'm basically like running into a John Wick Fortnite skin back in the day.
John Wick is in grave danger. What he needs is your credit card number, the 3 numbers on the back, as well as the expiration month and date. Be swift, gamers.
But since I knew I made this world for the platinum run, I knew this was going to take roughly 33 hours before I got one trophy on the list. So I took my time a little bit, but I didn't go super crazy, and I ended up with this. And even though I do enjoy a good build in Minecraft, I decided it was finally time for my true calling, yearning for the mines. And super quickly after heading down into the mines, I actually ended up finding this giant cave over here. And relatively quickly after that, I ended up also finding a diamond, so that was cool. I got the trophy for that. And because sharing is caring, I ended up passing the diamonds over to my friend to get this trophy. And after a very successful mining trip, I actually ended up being pretty stacked after the fact, so I ended up making a full set of iron armor and got this trophy for doing that. The next thing I decided to do was go find sugarcane because I knew I was going to need quite a bit of it for the books to use bookshelves for the enchantment table. And I also decided since I was going to need quite a bit of it, I think it would be better to just make it an automatic farm, so that's what I ended up doing. And by no means do I know what I'm doing with redstone or anything of that nature, so after a few Google and YouTube searches, I ended up finishing it and coming out with this. And after a long day of redstonery, I decided to quench my appetite with some rotten flesh. I then decided to go for some of the weird trophies like catching a fish and then cooking and eating it. Going underwater and digging up some clay and then cooking it in a furnace in order to get bricks to turn it into a clay pot, and after putting it down I got this. Smelting wood in order to get charcoal. Letting the cows outside have a good time.
This is a cow farm. You're gonna find cows outside.
And then finally I took the leftover wheat and made bread for this trophy. I then went back into the mines because the next thing I wanted to do is find a little bit more obsidian so we could go to the nether, but unfortunately I completely forgot how to make obsidian, so yeah, that was fun.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Since I was being mentally challenged, I decided to just go find some. And after 20 minutes of mining all the obsidian that we needed, we ended up going over here to go make the portal, and I'll let this next trophy speak for itself.
I was wondering if man got trophy. He shakes his head.
And I didn't feel I was quite ready to explore the nether yet, so I ended up going out throughout the world, and I ended up falling into snow, which I didn't know was an update. Shout out Minecraft, this was the worst update ever.
What will you learn? What will you learn? That your actions have consequences!
Feeling less adventurous at this point, I decided to stay home and knock out a few more trophies, including making a cake, making a dispenser, and playing a music disc. I then finally grew a pair and decided to go to the nether, and maybe I shouldn't have because the zombie pigmen jumped me for not wearing the right colors.
Fight back, nigga! Fight back, nigga! Fight back! Fight back!
And let's just say I did not have a good time in the nether. For whatever reason, every biome I dug into was a skeleton biome, and it sucked. While in the nether though, I had a few objectives. Firstly, shooting a fireball back at a ghast to get this. And secondly, my main objective was to bridge my way all the way over to the nether fortress, and let's just say this took a while. I dug through so many different biomes and so many different blocks. But after about an hour or so of being absolutely miserable, I finally made it over to the end fortress and killed a blaze to get this trophy. After being scarred from my trip to the nether, I decided it was time to come home and make an enchantment table, and I also made a bookshelf to go with it. And just to take a small break from the nether, I ended up going to find 5 dogs, but along the way I ended up getting this trophy for discovering 17 biomes. And then after finally taming 5 dogs, I got this trophy for being the alpha. After that, I went back down to the mines and ended up finding some more diamonds and iron, and then I ended up making some more gear so I could go back to the nether. And upon arriving at the nether, I went back to the fortress and started spawn trapping a bunch of different blazes. That way I could get as much blaze powder as I needed for all the potions and also for the Eyes of Ender that I would need later on. The next thing I wanted to do was make a potion of fire resistance, but I somehow glitched the system and just took a bottle of water out of the brewing stand and it thought it was a potion for some reason. After grabbing a few different materials and doing a few different Google searches, I learned how to make potions of fire resistance. And then I took the potion, headed back to the nether, and threw it down and jumped in the lava to get this trophy. And at this point I was basically ready to fight the Ender Dragon, but I wanted it to be my last trophy, so at this point I started the cleanup. The first thing I did was make an iron golem so it could protect the base. I found a pig and then let him off a tall ledge with a carrot. I mined a metric shit ton of cobblestone and put it all in a chest, and let me tell you, it was riveting gameplay. For the next trophy I had to get one of every color of wool, and this might sound super simple, but it was not because I had to go get a cactus for the green dye, and the nearest desert was about 3,000 blocks away, so that was awesome. And I figured since I had to get all the wool anyways, I might as well make a little showcase of it, so I made this little trophy case. The next thing I did is make a railway 500 meters long so I could get a trophy for doing that, and I decided to just point it all the way going towards the end, that way when we had to make the trip there it would be a little easier to do it. I then decided to channel my inner Black Ops 2 quickscoper and quickscope this creeper. And I also shot a skeleton from 50 meters away to get this trophy. I also went to the nearest jungle to tame an ocelot. We also saved a zombie villager and turned him back into a regular villager. This is completely unrelated to the platinum trophy, but they added copper golems that sort chests, kinda tough. I used a strength potion with the diamond sword to hit this zombie and deal 9 hearts of damage for this trophy. I then found a villager I could scam by trading coal for emeralds to get this trophy for trading 30 emeralds with a villager. And I got the last cleanup trophy while I was AFK at our XP farm for playing 100 days in Minecraft, which is basically 33 real life hours. And with all the cleanup out the way, it was officially time to go take on the Ender Dragon. After arriving at the portal, I put the last eye in and we jumped through to get this trophy for entering the end. And all that was left to do was kill the Ender Dragon, and in order to do that, all you have to do is climb up each pillar and destroy each one of these little orbs, and once all the orbs are gone, you can attack the Ender Dragon. And since there was like 6 different people on the server, we were all super stacked and had everything we needed to take care of it pretty easily. But during the fight, there was one missable trophy I had to make sure to get for bottling Dragon's Breath. And after destroying all the pillars, we could finally close the distance and do so much damage to the Ender Dragon until it eventually ended up dying. And after arriving home, we're greeted with this trophy for defeating the Ender Dragon and also this trophy for completing the platinum. Overall, I had a great time doing this platinum. Minecraft's, a top 5, if not top 3 game of all time, so obviously I'd recommend playing it if you haven't. And yeah, this was nostalgic for me because this was actually my first ever platinum I got on this account way back in 2015 on the PS3, so that's kind of cool. But anyways, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, leave a like and a comment. Let me know what game you guys want to see next, and subscribe if you want to see more. Peace.